Welcome to GreenHome Certifications and Labels 101. This session is brought to you by the GreenHome Institute. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, formerly under the name Alliance for Environmental Sustainability. We exist to empower people to make healthier and more sustainable choices in the renovation and construction of the places we live. You can find more information at greenhomeinstitute.org. My name is Brett Little, and I am the Executive Director at the Alliance for Environmental Sustainability, and I really appreciate your time for listening in to this session, and I hope I can help give you a little better understanding of GreenHome residential certification programs. In this first session, we covered energy ratings, miles per gallon programs for homes, Energy Star version 3, Indoor Air Plus, and the WaterSense program. The Department of Energy's Zero Energy Ready Home, and then Passive House. In today's program, we're going to be covering all of the green certification programs that go beyond energy and indoor air quality and look at the 5 main categories of green: energy, health, water, materials, and site and community. So again, overall, trying to determine out of each of these programs, based on those areas that we covered, what's important to you. Is it cost? Is it third-party oversight? Is it the type of guidance that the program provides? Is it anything to do with its political affiliations? Where is it that each of these programs, fit your needs? Are there a few that fit your needs? Some of these work well together for dual certification. But what is it that's important to you? So, as we go through this, it's about identifying where you see yourself. And so many of these programs fall into different levels, all the way from, on the left side of the bell curve to building and remodeling homes without following the energy laws, all the way to, following the current energy codes, and then moving into the market shift, being a green leader, and then looking at the 5%, the risk takers. Which of these programs sort of delve into that 5%, and really where do you see yourself along this scale? So we covered a lot about why green building, green home certifications, and then some of the baseline energy programs. And so what you'll find again is that each of these green rating systems that we're going to cover build on successful utilized energy programs as their baseline. If they want to be successful, they usually model themselves and attach themselves to things that are working in the market. So the first program I want to go over is the National Green Building Standard, which is a third-party green home certification that was developed by the National Association of Home Builders, and now has been handed off to the Home Innovation Lab, who, from a branding standpoint, you might not be able to tell, but they are an entity of the National Association of Home Builders. So the first thing to note about the National Green Building Standard is its energy performance pathway baseline, and that's built on the International Energy Code Council's IECC 2009 iteration as its baseline for its mandatory energy requirements, which is just recently improved from the 2006 IECC, which is about a 15% energy efficiency improvement, just the baseline to National Green Building Standard. Now, if you want to go above and beyond that and score more points in the energy pathway, there are many ways to do that, and some of those ways are following the guidance of the IECC 2012, of using the Energy Star program and the HERS index, or just simply using the HERS index. There's many different options and ways and pathways you can use to score more energy points in the National Green Building Standard. And lastly, what you'll interestingly find is that the National Green Building Standard is tied very closely to the International Green Code Council, or IGCC, which is essentially a step up from just energy, and it's looking at the many facets of green: water, air, materials, resources, waste diversion, site and community impact. And the National Green Building Standard, some states have adopted the IGCC as their code, and really, quite honestly, all it is a code version of the National Green Building Standard rather than a market rate third-party verification tool. And that's certainly something you can download and utilize now as well. So what you'll find when you're looking at National Green Building Standard might be a little confusing. You see that there's the International Code Council 700, which is just basically another word of saying the residential code. You might also see terminology called the IRC, International Residential Code, same thing as ICC 700. The National Green Building Standard ICC 700 equals the 2009 iteration, which is basically just the 2006 Energy Code. So it gets a little confusing, but that's basically all these things mean the same thing, and you might see some references to that when you're looking at National Green Building Standard. So this is a chart that I took from when they were based on the 2006 IECC. It's relatively the same now that they're based on 2009. So in order to certify bronze, you have to be 15% more energy efficient than the baseline code. To get to silver, you're looking at about a 35% efficiency, 50, and then 60 for the emerald. And so the only way to score in the rating system is to be that much more energy efficient than the standard 2009 IECC code. The National Green Building Standard works on single-family homes, low-rise, single-family production, gut rehabs. Interestingly enough, they do now have a brand new remodeling tool and small project tool for kitchens, bathrooms, basements, you name it. I believe they may be developing something for mid-rise multifamily using the ASHRAE standard as their pathway, but I'm not 100% sure on that. And then as far as I know, they do not have any pathways for mixed-use high-rise multifamily buildings. The chapters in the book, they call them chapters. If you download the checklist, you see lot design, preparation, and development, guidance on resource efficiency, energy efficiency, water efficiency, indoor environmental quality, and operation and maintenance. The other chapters, if you see the checklist, are just other guidance documents. The weightings in their program, so we're going to go through the weightings in each of these programs, and you'll find these are where you make up basically how many things you have to do in your project based on each of these. So you see the weightings are fairly evenly distributed with a huge focus on lot design, and then resource efficiencies such as material makeups, components, recycling and waste management. Those are all things you'll find in resource efficiency. Lot design is kind of where you're placing your lot. Community impacts. And then, under that, it's sort of energy efficiency, water, and indoor environmental quality are the next things, that you have to be considerate of. And then operations, like most programs, is fairly small. From a third-party standpoint, you're looking at a green rater verifier that's trained by the Home Builders Association online. There's somebody who isn't supposed to be on the project team, so they have to be independent. Now the Home Innovation Lab reviews all submitted documentation and approves it. And from my understanding, I don't know of any quality assurance that's done on the verifier as far as any kind of site visits, outside of just them submitting the documentation online. Popularity and use, exponential growth in the multifamily industry for this program. The Home Builders Association entities exist in every major city in the U.S., so there's lots of pathways for this program to be employed. Some of the HBAs push green more than others, some don't. Some have developed their own local programs that, rather than promoting the HBA's national program. And so here in the Midwest, some successful programs have been the Green Built Michigan, and then Green Path in Minnesota, I believe, is a fairly successful localized Minnesota HBA program. They have attached themselves to the international code. So like I was saying, If you are building to the IGC, International Green Code, in your local jurisdiction, you're basically just using a variance of the National Green Building Standard. In the Midwest, Indiana is the leading state for certifications. Next up, I believe, is Chicagoland, and then there's a nice little niche in Traverse City, Michigan for this program. And from what I can tell, there's not that many remodels. You can go to their website and see this is being updated daily right here. I think this is now, they've certified over 36,000 probably now homes and lots. Single-family homes, new and remodeled, number of certified units, number in process, multifamily units, and then land development. They've got 51,000 units in process, about 25,000 certified. It's a pretty good number, and that you can follow that if you're interested in learning more, of staying up to date with how they're doing, and then you can see how that breaks down by state and what builders are being involved too. It's a pretty good resource. Again, in the Midwest, over 500 projects have been certified. You can see the places that are in green on the map here are the ones that have most traction. Chicago, Traverse City in yellow, the second amount, and then red, not as much. There's about over 3,000 units in the Midwest. Outside of the Midwest, I'm told by the Home Innovation Lab that North Carolina is their #1 state for some reason, and Texas is huge, and then I guess the Northeast is getting pretty popular for this program. Education and resources. I think there's a $40 book for their 2012 hard copy. I believe you can even download it as a PDF. Their checklist is free. You can access that online anytime you want to. And then I think to get training to become a certified green professional is about $400 to $600 to go through that training and get certified as a master builder, depending on whether you're a member or not. Interestingly enough, the certified green professional has no real relation to the National Green Building Standard. You don't get any extra points for having it. You don't get any extra. You don't get set aside as being someone who is a professional in the NGBS standard. You're merely just certified as a green professional under the HBA. From a political standpoint, again, we're going to be covering what these organizations do from a policy. They do have some hefty PAC donations up into the millions of dollars. You can go to opensecrets.org. It's a great resource, and you can see how much money and over the course of the years where they've donated to the left or the right, individuals or PACs, and certainly if that's an issue, whether you support that program or not, whether that's a benefit, that's something to consider as well. As I said, they just updated from the International Energy Code 2006 to 2009. They're on a 3-year cycle update, and they will likely skip 2012 is what I hear and go straight to the International Energy Code 2015, which is fairly interesting. In the summer next year, they may base their program off of 2015, which is said to be about 50% more energy efficient than the standard average built-to-code home, 2006 code home. And IECC 2015 is much more supported by national home builders than the 2012 code is. They do also have a HERS performance pathway that is much more user-friendly than 2012. So that could be why they're skipping over 12 and going straight to 2015. Certification fees, you're looking at $500 per building for new and renovations. If you're not a member, $200 if you are a member. And then, of course, there's some savings in the multifamily, from a volume standpoint, whether you're a member or not. We always like to say on a green verifier, $200 to $1,500 per unit. Again, depending on what you're asking the rater to do, what credits you're chasing after, blower door testing, duct leakage testing, holding your hand throughout the process, or just showing up to do what they need to do. Those kinds of prices vary. By rater, by area, that's just typically what we see in the market. And a real quick summary of the National Green Building Standard. It's a program mostly for single-family suburban home builders, is in the opinion of the raters that we work with. Its popularity is just growing exponentially fast, especially in the multifamily housing. It is one of the very few ANSI approved consensus-based green home standards. You won't find that in most other green rating systems. It does have a connection to the international code and a partnership now with ASHRAE. They interestingly have a certified green products program. Not many certification home certification organizations certify products, and they do, so you can check those out. And then questionable on the third-party verification. There was some questions in the past whether the builder was also the rater and doing their own verification on their own products, on their own projects. The program has progressed and improved, and I've been told by the Innovation Lab that that's not definitely not an issue at this point. Just from a real quick look at their checklist, it is full of lots of great options and resources, but also fairly complicated to use, not very simple, lots of different formulas and things going on. One interesting thing is larger homes are rewarded. So ironically, if there's more bathrooms that have more lower efficiency flow rates, that's a great thing. But a smaller home with less bathrooms wouldn't be able to get as many points in the system, and I think that also applies to some of its resource efficiencies. So that's a little bit of probably a perceived flaw there. The next program we want to look at is an up-and-coming program in the Midwest. It started as the Minnesota GreenStar program, just as a Minnesota locally based program that was developed by the Minnesota Home Builders Association, the NARI Minnesota chapter, and the Green Institute, and then became its own 501c3 nonprofit and entity, but is now expanding across the Midwest and is now called the GreenStar. And they do certify both homes, new homes, and then one of their biggest, I guess, one of the coolest things they do is also remodeling, remodeling guidance in the cold weather climates. Their baseline mostly starts with energy efficiency programs, just looking at all the different things you could do in an existing or new home, all the different points you can score in things that you do to upgrade and their weightings. But then they also use now the HERS index. So if you use the HERS index in a new and existing home, you can score a little bit higher in the system, or you can use the REPS score that we talked about, or the home energy score to get your score there and figure out, again, your energy pathway in the GreenStar program. Applicable program building types, single-family homes, major gut rehabs. Low-rise multifamily is currently in the pilot phase, and this really is not applicable to mid-rise or mixed-use high-rise buildings. I put the star there by the additions, remodels, and weatherization because that's really where GreenStar's strength lies, is providing tools and resources for doing, and different guidance if you're doing just light remodels, just like adding an addition, an attic, doing a whole home remodel, just finishing a basement, even adding siding. You can certify a project like that. All the way up to adding condition square footage, new footings, and then of course an addition as well. All sorts of guidance. What this program is looking at is some of these 5 key concepts: energy, resource efficiency, indoor environmental quality, water conservation, site and community impact. And what it's looking at is how each of these affect the different systems in a home: high performance building envelope systems, mechanicals, electricals, finishes, trims, waste management. How does each of these 5 levels of green improve or maybe even harm one of the different sections of the house? And then GreenStar giving guidance on ways that the tool can be utilized to make the best decision for a whole systems approach across the 5 key categories in each of the sections of the house. The credit weightings, this is really heavy on energy, which makes a lot of sense. Most of your opportunities lie in energy, so about 50% of the points you're looking at are in your energy efficiency section, and then about 15%, give or take, 5 or 7, are at water, indoor environmental quality, site and community impact, and resource efficiency. Third-party inspections and auditing in the past, if you're familiar with Lead Online, this program kind of worked like that, where the homeowner could submit a ton of documentation to GreenStar admin, and they would review all of this documentation and submit it, and they might have a BPI rater come by and do some testing. Or a HERS rater. Now we're actually looking at third-party GreenStar rater inspections, inspecting everything on the site, ensuring that everything that was installed is actually there, and then submitting that documentation to the reviewer in Minneapolis, and then actually having on-site quality assurance auditing being done on the raters. Education resources, there's a free online training to use this program. You can go through that training at your own leisure. There's a free 400-page manual with guidance, along with a free checklist that you can download and utilize it at any time. Once you go through the training, you probably find that you want to get qualified to work and certify an actual project. So there's some fees to that, and there are many different ways to get qualified depending on what your needs are. There's online live sessions, and then there's pre-recorded on-demand sessions that you can go through and take a test. You can do a design charrette on a real project for busy professionals. That's highly recommended. Or there's full and half-day trainings across the Midwest as well. Designations, so there's the GreenHome Professional and the GreenHome Associate after you become GreenStar qualified. In order to become a GreenHome Associate, you must pass the National Association of the Remodeling Industries Green Certification Program. You have to pass their exam. There is a 3-day course that's broken up in a couple different online live webinars that you can take to get geared up for that exam. But all you have to do is pass the exam. It's a closed book proctored exam. And then the GreenHome Professional, to become a GreenHome Professional, you have to just certify a project. From a political standpoint, there is zero political advocacy or lobbying on behalf of GreenStar. That wouldn't even be legal normally for a nonprofit of their status, so it wouldn't be something they can participate in. Now, of course, GreenStar will always provide research and data to policymakers. GreenStar does collect utility data as part of its requirements for the program, and would provide how that's working if a policymaker decided they needed some more information on green building. GreenStar currently does have an Excel checklist. But they are upgrading to a more online-based tool that's easy to use and shareable across the project team. So they're very excited to see that update go through, hopefully by January 2015. Real quick on the fees, $100 to $200 plus 10 cents a square foot with member discounts available. That $100 to $200 is contingent on the type of project, whether it's a small remodel all the way up to an addition or new home. Third-party inspections, again, $200 to $1,500, could be subsidized in your area. We knew Excel Energy in Minnesota at one point was subsidizing to some degree a lot of the energy portion of these inspections. And again, that all depends on the number of tests and what you're looking for the rater to do. And then there's always the cost involving internal documentation. So if your organization decides to use GreenStar as its tool, there might be a higher cost for that first time change in your process. But after the second and third, you become more efficient, as with any green rating system, at utilizing that tool and building it into your day-to-day operations. One interesting thing about the GreenStar program is they like to follow the precautionary principle, and they do have a really robust and well-vetted recommendation policy on how to avoid EMF exposures. We believe that EMF may be the future of the indoor environmental quality issues, And so there are no requirements, but things like such as keeping your refrigerator 6 feet away from sleeping areas, keeping routers away. Sometimes those are inherent points you might be able to find anyway. But there's many other protocols you can find if you find that you have a client who's concerned about EMF, whether because they have some kind of particular documented health issue, or they're just concerned about it in the future, or maybe they're having a kid. You can use the GreenStar program as a way to find a way to reduce the EMF fields. One cool thing about the GreenStar program is it's a continual progress, continual basis. Here's an example of a home that took 8 years, had an 8-year remodeling project, and eventually certified gold. You can use this program to maybe say the first year, my client is going to certify, maybe at the basic level. But then, in 3 years, they have all these home improvement strategies that's going to get them to silver or gold. It's really cool that you can kind of go through that process and kind of have this phased approach, and then kind of come back to the client and offer them services to get them to that next level. And in summary, this is a regionally relevant program in cold weather. If you're in the Pacific Northwest, if you're in the Southeast, probably not for you. Best for light or moderate remodels or weatherization versus many other programs. It really has its strength there. It's much more affordable. It's non-political. It is membership and sponsorship supported and based, so that's a unique thing about it. It has a multifamily pilot underway. Has a recognized residential accreditation program focused on residential, and currently, has a very complicated, cumbersome checklist, but upgrades are coming soon. And of course, GreenStar would want to give a shout out to other regional relevant programs that are a part of the National GreenHome Certified Coalition. So if you're doing a remodel or new home in the South, you probably want to use the Earthcraft program. If you're in the Pacific Northwest, check out Earth Advantage Institute and their great program. Greenbuilt Texas, Build It Green in California has some amazing tools. And then if you're a follower of Green Building Advisor, they just have a really cool tool called the Pretty Good House. And it just kind of gives, it's not even a point system. It just says, this is what a good house would be if you're mostly building new. But they do a lot of work in the Northeast, and so you can check them out if you're building in the Northeast. Some really great regional programs. Good to see them doing well. The next green rating system we're going to cover is most likely the one you've heard about, and that's the Lead for Homes rating system that's delivered and overseen by the USGBC. USGBC stands for United States Green Building Council, and LEAD stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. The USGBC is now an international organization with different there's the Canadian Green Building Council, I think there's a Middle Eastern Green Building Council, but they all have direct ties to each other, and it is a member-based organization that has a lot of its strength tied into green rating systems on the commercial and industrial scale for new and existing buildings, but then started piloting the Lead for Homes program back in 2005 as one of the first nationally recognized green home rating system. So the Lead for Homes program's very baseline program that it has hitched itself to is first and foremost the residential energy networks, HERS index rating, and utilizing the network of trained and qualified and credentialed HERS index ratings to generate this miles per gallon like index for single family and low-rise multifamily projects. The baseline HERS index score for a lead home now is a 70, so 30% more energy efficient than the 2006 energy code. Beyond that, the program is then built off the Energy Star program, which of course uses the HERS index. Now, the Energy Star version 2 program only requires a HERS 85, but that program has closed down and now it's in Energy Star version 3. LEED itself in the current 2008 model is only using the Energy Star version 2 requirements, so that's having a rater go through and do the thermal bypass inspection on the inspection checklist, you know, checking air sealing, thermal envelope completion, and having the pre-drywall inspection before the drywall goes up, and then you know, prior to the siding going up. So that is one of the things that the program starts with from its energy component pathway. LEED midrise acts a little bit different through the midrise rating system. There's actually a little bit of a different checklist for the midrise program, not too different, and that's 4 to 6 stories, even going up to 12 stories now. And for the baseline for midrise, unless you have decentralized water heating and HVAC systems, the baseline is using the ASHRAE 90.1 2007 standard, and going above and beyond that standard you can score more points in the rating system, and that will get you to your LEED for Homes program and the energy point. Again, LEED is used on single family, low rise, multifamily, mid-rise, multifamily, mid-rise mixed use, and then we've got a couple projects underway through 8 through even 12-story mixed use and high-rise multifamily housing apartments. Single family production is huge, not so much in the Midwest, but in those large tracts of land in Texas, California, whole neighborhoods. Gut rehab is available as long as you again are exposing either the exterior or the interior thermal envelope through tearing the drywall, removing the siding, and also removing the drywall behind the bathroom and putting in and verifying a non-paper face backer board. LEED does not work for additions, remodels, and weatherization projects. Again, just like Energy Star, it's mostly because it's hitched to Energy Star. It is not applicable to that type of work. Now, if you do have interest in doing a green remodel through a connection to the USGBC has partnered up with AISD to come up with a guidance program called ReGreen, and it even has an accreditation to it. And you can go online and get all sorts of resources and tools, and even a whole guidance free manual on how to re-green an existing home, but there is no certification connected to that. LEED does have a neighborhood development, and actually so did the National Green Building Standard. They have a whole lot program. This LEED neighborhood gets more into the commercial aspect and affects an entire city block all the way up to an entire city, looking at the site, the location, the community resources. Within a neighborhood development, there must be one certified LEED building, but the rest of the buildings just have to be verified to meet certain criteria. In this case, in LEED for Homes, they all have to have HERS ratings, and then for more points, they can verify water efficiency measures. LEED for Homes point weighting. USGBC has identified climate change as the #1 global threat, so there is more opportunities in scoring in the energy and atmosphere section of the rating system. And then next is sustainable sites, looking at the water efficiency of the site, where your site is placed, density, and then of course indoor environmental quality is next, looking at the health of the occupants. And then they go down from materials to location, as to how many community resources there are, is there bus, transit, the innovation and design, and then in the current iteration you can score some points for educating the homeowners and educating the public. LEED is a little bit interesting in that it's a 136 point rating system, and the thresholds adjust based on something called the home size adjuster. So they can adjust between 45 and 54 in certified, all the way up to 85 to 110 in platinum. So that just means the larger your house is, with the less amount of bedrooms, the more points you have to score, the more things you have to do in the rating system to achieve a higher level. So, smaller homes obviously use less resources, have less energy, so they can score a little bit easier. If you're familiar with LEED new construction, the delivery model is sort of this. There's the GBCI, LEED Online component, and then there's the USGBC, and then you've got your design team, which probably is, in-house staff, commissioning agent, and then ideally a LEED AP. A little bit differently for the residential section, you've got a LEED for Homes provider, and then there's someone who oversees a LEED Green Rater, who goes out and does on-site visual verification. There's about 40 different providers around the Midwest serving different regions. So there is no LEED Online, and that provider acts as a sort of a point between the USGBC and then the design and construction team as well. So it's a little bit different than LEED NC. And then the rater, there's a lot less documentation, and the rater's just visually verifying, inspecting, and testing as opposed to a commissioning agent. As far as popularity of the program, in 2013 there were 50,000 units certified. 74% of them were multifamily. So it is a little more popular in the multifamily area. It's about 50-50 now with affordable housing, which is great. It really shows that the program works well with affordable housing, and a lot of this momentum has really just happened in the last 2 years. If you count all of the commercial buildings certified around the world that are residential in nature but didn't use the residential program, we're looking at 150,000 residential certified projects. From a registration standpoint, up till the end of 2013, probably now looking at over 140,000 LEED certified, registered projects, units out there in the world. And again, you can just see again the growth of the program as far as certification. It sort of just shows the momentum that has spiked here in the last 2 years. People go into buildings, into offices, and now into Starbucks, who's committed all of their buildings to being LEED, and they're on their 500th home. They go into these buildings, and they're like, how do we can we certify our own home LEED? And so really the success of the program has a lot to do with people just thinking, well, if a building can be green, then why can't our home? And so LEED's success has been really contingent on its unique growth amongst the commercial sector. Here's a recent report released online. It's called LEED in Motion, all about LEED for Homes. You can check it out. It's pretty interesting. Here in the Midwest, we like to celebrate the success of Ohio, who is number 6 in the U.S. for LEED certified units. And then, it's great to see the diversity of states that are in the top 10 here across the U.S. for LEED. And again, LEED is not contingent just to the USA. LEED for Homes now is spreading. Canada, Haiti, Cayman Islands, Saudi Arabia is pretty big. Mozambique, Turkey, China, Hong Kong. We had a rater come to one of our trainings from Norway, I believe, and I kind of joked around with them and said, don't you guys have passive house, and don't you have stringent codes? Why do you need LEED? And they essentially said is sexy. LEED is the language of green. LEED is what people demand and want, and so we believe it is spreading in Europe. If you do a kind of a correlation using Google to figure out hits, you can find here that LEED is actually Googled more than green building is. What that really means, is that just because people don't know what it is? Hard to say, but pretty interesting nonetheless. From an education standpoint, LEED has an accreditation program. First, you become a LEED Green Associate, which is very focused on commercial, and then you can divvy off into your different specification. And so you'd probably, in this case, want to focus on your LEED AP Homes, which is a closed book test that you have to take, about $200. And you can purchase the LEED for Homes reference manual and study guides. They range around $200. You can find them used. and then you can also download a PDF version of that for a cost. Political, LEED does a lot of lobbying for USGBC itself, does a lot of lobbying for green schools, energy efficiency, air quality codes. I believe they've, a lot of their lobbying goes more towards the Democratic, to the left side, but you can check them out on opensecrets.org and see how much money they've used to lobby political influences, if that's something that, again, affects the type of system you want to invest your time into. There has been some interesting anti-LEED movements across the U.S. Believe it or not, a lot of cities and federal governments, or state governments rather, actually mandate a lot of their buildings that they get built federally and state-based or city-based must take, must use LEED to some degree or another. So there has been a lot of pushback against that. State of Ohio recently just completely banned any LEED in any federal or state buildings within the Ohio itself. They can't, of course, ban it in a market. It's a free market. I think the state of North Carolina banned a particular pathway in LEED version 4, which is interesting too. But you can see there's a lot of, there's a lot of different, state by state, there's a lot of different reactions to LEED. Most of it's in the commercial rating system. Another interesting thing about the state of Ohio is that the city of Cincinnati has one of the most robust LEED tax abatement programs for the residential building sector.
LEED for homes, 2008, much like the new construction rating system, are both slated to update to the version 4. This recently has been held off and is now slated for October 31st, 2016. The current LEED for homes version 4 is open. It's beyond its pilot phase, and you can use it now, but 2008 will no longer be available as of Halloween 2016. So some of the things to look for is Energy Star version 3 being the baseline to the program instead of version 2, which requires having a credentialed heating and cooling contractor, using the water management checklist, and then having a heating HVAC checklist as well. It does remove the entire durability portion of the LEED program, which to some degree may make it easier. Another thing they're looking at is energy and water use monitoring is going to be a little more prominent. A little more of a life cycle analysis on the impact of the material choices in the homes. A little more focus on urbanization and access to community resources for LEED homes. By no means will rural homes be disqualified, but they'll just be more of a focus on that location efficiency, urbanization. Water performance, they use the EPA's new water performance tool, water budget tool, which you can check out now if you're designing any kind of landscaping for you can't use it for the current LEED program, but it will be a entirely water performance indoor and outdoor pathway for the LEED for Homes rating system. And they have removed the LEED home size adjuster, but Energy Star 3 still has its own home size adjuster, which is kind of built into that. We do have more resources on our website as well for understanding the LEED for Homes version 4 process if you want to utilize it now.
Looking at LEED for Homes, they do have these ultimate goals going from 2008 to version 4, and in the future they hope that a LEED Platinum means a building that is more positive in nature, zero energy, zero water, zero waste. And then moving into, like, just example, LEED 2020, where a gold is like kind of breaking that line of not just being less bad, but being more positive and restoring the environment. What are the costs? Soft costs, less than the cost of granite countertops. USGBC fees, whether you're a member or not, $500. The provider fees, all providers have different models. We say around $600 on average. Green and energy raters can cost $1,500, again, depending on what you're asking them to do. And a lot of this can decrease on a multifamily standpoint because of the volume. So that's certainly, $2,500 is roughly what we say for a single family home. On the hard costs, you can go anywhere from less than 3% to 10%. More than conventional. Less than 3% is because there's many different ways you could do, like waste diversion that gets you points in the system, reorienting your house to take advantage of the sun. A lot of those things are free things that you can do that can even save costs. And of course, those costs come down when you have better green building experience on LEED or other certification programs. LEED comes out with a really cool, unique tool, an ingredients label that it has. Kind of gives a real quick, just showing you, like you would look at the back of a cereal box, how the home is performing in each of the individual categories. It's a really good marketing tool that you can utilize if you certify as LEED does not certify products. It's a huge misconception. They certify home. They do not certify people. They accredit people, which most programs do. Products only have green attributes or alternative certifications. No VOC is an attribute. Recycled content is an attribute. Locally sourced. Green Guard, Cradle to Cradle, Green Label Plus, those are all organizations that certify products, as well as the National Green Building Standard now certifies buildings and products. Conclusions: higher third-party oversight versus many other green rating systems. It's the most popular green building program internationally and the most popular homes program internationally that anyone could think of or point to currently as we stand. It's good for both affordable housing and market rate evenly. It's more popular with multifamily housing and urban projects. It's really good for commercial developers and architects who are making a transition to work on multifamily residential buildings. Not so friendly for the single-family home builder. Higher cost compared to other programs, and quite honestly, there's not as much support for the residential. Even though residential makes up 50% of USGBC's LEED certification programs, there's just not as much buy-in or support to improve its residential program versus its commercial. It's much stronger in the commercial realm. Enterprise Green Communities is a program developed by the Enterprise Foundation, which is a nonprofit foundation located in Washington, D.C. The Enterprise Green Communities program is a free tool that anyone can use that's mostly developed for affordable housing multifamily developers. For both new and major rehabs, the Green Communities tool has hitched itself to the HERS index as its energy performance pathway, getting a HERS score of 85, similar to LEED. And then, of course, the HERS pathway prompts having an Energy Star score. Green Communities does require that you use version 3 and not version 2, unlike LEED currently, to get Enterprise Green Communities. In moderate rehabs, you can simply just use the HERS index to get your energy score. You don't have to use the Energy Star pathway if you're not planning on doing substantial gut rehab to the building. Interestingly, there's a chart that we will provide as a resource here that kind of shows how each of the green communities compares to their 2008 green communities versus the new 2011 standard, and whether it's single family or multifamily, mid-rise or low-rise, and whether it's new construction, substantial rehabilitation, or a moderate bit rehabilitation. A lot of that can change the different types of energy scores you're going. Green Communities works on all sorts of building projects: single family, low-rise, multifamily, mid-rise, mixed use. If you're using mid-rise, you're using the ASHRAE standard, just like LEED, and doing energy modeling. Gut rehabs, and then again, additions, remodels, and weatherization projects can use the moderate rehab pathway under the Green Communities tool. Mixed use and high-rise really don't apply in this system. And at the end of the day, again, this is mostly developed for affordable housing developers. So we're looking at the the different pathways, the different sections of green, integrative design, water conservation, energy, location and neighborhood, operation and maintenance, healthy living environment, site improvements, and material benefits to the environment is, what they name their categories for green. Green communities, you must comply with all of their mandatory criteria. They have a lot of prerequisites, just like LEED. Earn 35 optional points if it's new construction, or just 30 optional points if it's a moderate or substantial rehab. Looking at this program, comparing it to LEED or other National Green Building Standard, it just has quite a bit of prerequisites to get to this level, of certification at all. From a third-party standpoint, you're looking at a second-party HERS rater, which is often a third party, going in and doing at least the energy audit for the HERS index and then the Energy Star program. It's not required to have a third-party inspection unless they're audited for anything outside of energy. And I have never heard to this day of any green communities project ever getting audited. I think it's just something they plan on doing in the future. Third-party documentation submittal online review and feedback. So you submit through their online web portal tool. It's a pretty it's almost like Lead Online if you're someone who's coming from that world. There's lots of documentation you have to do, but at the end of the day, it is free to submit. So it's really great to take advantage of utilizing them and working with them if you have an affordable housing project that you're working on. Like I said, you go to their website, you can check out their online criteria, you can log in, you can create an account and see what they have. Even if you don't certify, they have some really great resources and tools on their website. You can drill down to their checklist. You can request that they send you a manual, and they will send you their new manual, and you can have a paper copy. I believe it's free, or maybe like $20 if you want to do that, and you can scroll through what all the requirements is for the program and the guidance. We're looking at across the Midwest 14 to 39 projects. It appears that Ohio is sort of the leader in this, with a good mix of multifamily, new construction, rehab, and single family. And Indiana just simply isn't getting any traction with the program. Places like Michigan, they have green communities built into their QAP. And I think Ohio does too, so you can get tax credits, tax abatements if you're an affordable housing developer using some kind of quality allocation plan. And if you succeed in building green communities, I know they do that with LEED too here in Michigan. In the Midwest, there's over 1,500 units certified, and they believe about 7,000 underway that are registered in their pre-build stage. Green communities, the Enterprise Foundation does support, does a lot of lobbying, over $5 million through 2013. You can see who they're supporting, a lot of support for Barack Obama, Democrats. And so again, if you're, looking to utilize the program, that might be something that's important. They are updating, and they do have a new they have an open source right now. You can get a part, you can join on their draft team, and you can add your comments and add your thoughts to how the program should look in 2015. It's pretty cool, but they are progressing and moving forward along with building code updates and technology, and they're looking for your input. So reach out to them if you're interested in being involved in shaping the program. Enterprise Green Communities, mainly for affordable multifamily housing. No cost to certify or use the online tool. New construction and major rehab require a HERS of 75 and Energy Star version 3. Moderate rehabs require a HERS of 85 to certify at baseline level. They lack any on-site third-party oversight and quality assurance, more prerequisites compared to other programs, and an easy online tool to understand what to do, but can be very time-consuming. So the final program we're going to cover in this session, I believe kind of moves us out of obviously just energy programs, out of just your standard green building programs, or even super deep energy programs, and really moving into this idea of sustainability and regenerativeness and restorative type programs. And so we're going to be covering the Living Building Challenge, which recently just updated to its version 3 requirement. The Living Building Challenge was developed by the Cascadia Green Building Council, who launched the International Living Future Institute outside of the Pacific Northwest, and their mission is to lead and support the transformation towards communities that are socially just, culturally rich, and ecologically restorative. These programs can be used on renovation projects, land and landscape and infrastructure projects, and just obviously whole building. There are some differences on where you are building, and you have to identify that, whether you're in all the way from a natural habitat preserve to a rural agricultural zone, all the way into L6, where you're in an urban core zone like in downtown New York. So depending on where you find yourself, there are some different ways that you have to build or do on your project. This program is applicable to essentially everything. It even has a neighborhood scale project, so you can use it on any kind of type of project, as far as, especially with what we're talking about on the residential. So the Living Building Challenge metaphor is the flower, and so it's broken down into petals, and we've got place, your relationship to the space that you're in, water, which is essentially net zero water, black water remediation, energy, which they're just looking at, essentially net zero energy, commission systems. Health and happiness is interesting, so they're looking at all the way from air quality and doing air quality testing after the project is done, all the way to sort of mental well-being, such as how are people connecting with nature in the space, is biophilia present, is there that increase in mental health. Materials is a very tough pedal to achieve. We're looking at essentially non-toxic, more regionally sourced materials that have a life cycle analysis, trying to determine where they're going to go at the end of their life. So, for example, PVC is not allowed. So, there's some issues there with wiring, electrical wiring, with roofing. And then, interestingly enough, this program sort of departs here from other green building programs when it starts to get into the equity and then beauty aspect. So, sort of a socially just project. How does your building lend to the culture of the area? Is the building beautiful? It needs to be verified to fit into the neighborhood that it goes into and not be an eyesore or negative. So Living Building Challenge has full certification, and you have to meet all of the petals, and within the petals they have something called imperative. And then there's petal certification, which means if you can meet 3 or more petals of what must be their main level is water, energy, or material, and you can kind of get that petal certification, and then maybe do the next ones in the next year. And then they have an interesting, they have their net zero energy building certification, or you might see the word net positive going out. And so so it's a little bit more than just a passive house with solar panels. They're really looking at a couple other things. In this, they are making you look at your beauty and your inspiration and education, as well as limiting vehicle needs for this certification. The interesting thing is that the Living Building Challenge is a certification that is not based on prescriptive approaches or energy modeling or anything like that. It's based on anticipated performance, so it can be up to a whole year before you can certify, because you do have to submit your utility bills and show that you are net positive. You put more energy back on the grid than you've used, that you've captured and cleaned all of your rainwater, you don't have a water bill as well. So those are things that they'll be looking at. So the Living Building Challenge, this is kind of a hybrid of how everything works in as far as the percentage based of what types of projects they are, where they're located at. So they now have over 201 projects registered. That is all the way into the commercial realm too, mostly commercial. They have 18 certified across the world. They have, you listed here in these dark colored spaces, is where they have ambassador networks. And then about 27%, I would say, according to them here, are single-family multi-residential, which is certainly up from when it first started. It was definitely more commercial in nature, and most of the projects that are certified are also commercial. Interesting thing about the Living Building Challenge is that they're looking at what they call their red list, and the red list has 12 basically 12 components that you have to avoid in your project. Those 12 components are made up of 54 mixtures, and those 54 mixtures are broken down into 77 chemicals that are essentially banned from the Living Building Challenge, give or take exception. One of the ways they do this is they have product manufacturers declare their products. So this is a really cool tool that you can use now. It's free. You can log in and see who's been declaring, and anyone can declare whether they meet the Living Building Challenge requirements or not. It shows a level of intent, and what they're declaring is 100% material transparency, and then the CEO signs off. So it's not a third-party label or certification by any means. It's just simply a testament from an organization that, hey, this is the ingredients of our products, and we're going to get the word out about. As far as third-party certification, an ILFI trained and hired auditor will be assigned to review the project after post-construction to ensure all the requirements are met. So they're not coming in and doing pre-drywall, they're not doing blower door testing. Nope, they're just showing up, making sure that everything is real, really looking at the energy bills, maybe doing some commissioning on the HVAC system, depending on if you're doing a multifamily building. For education, Living Building Challenge does have a Living Future accreditation, and so that is sort of like the LEED AP, but for Living Future, and you can learn certainly more about that on their website as well. And then you can also become an ambassador if you're interested in promoting this. It's totally free. You just go onto their website, take an online training, and then they give you access to really cool presentations like this. And I'm very thankful for them to allow me to have access to some of this neat material here. And then for education, you can go to their Living Future. Obviously, the next one will be in 2015, usually in the Pacific Northwest. It's a pretty cool conference, somewhat similar to Greenbuild if you're familiar with it. And then, from a policy standpoint, I found that neither the Institute nor Cascadia Green Building Council directly give any kind of funds or do any kind of political lobbying. Now they are part of the Green Building Council, which is a part of the USGBC National, so there's still that connection there. But really the intent of the Living Building Challenge, besides the certification, is just pure advocacy. It's breaking down the barriers that prevent us from getting to authentic sustainability. So for example, if you are trying to capture and clean your own rainwater but the code doesn't allow it, it's kind of coming together with a group and saying, look, what are the strategies we need to overcome these issues together? What technologies, what kind of scientific data, or what kind of political will do we need to help us build more sustainably? That could all the way go down to just trying to put solar panels on your house in a local homeowners association who says you can't do that. Those are all the types of things that they're trying to help. From a cost standpoint, we hear about 20 to 30% hard costs. There's a really great study, and I'll have that in a packet for you, in DC, where they compared multifamily building, commercial building, and then a rehab commercial of a living building, if the project would have went living building versus just standard LEED Platinum, and they compare all those costs. So check that out. It's a cool study. And then it's really recommended that you work with a living building consultant, which there could be some fees. And then, depending on the size and scope of your project, you might want to hire someone for design, an ecologist, a landscape designer, HVAC commissioning, energy rater, water specialist, renewable energy expert, and then probably a materials researcher. I'm sure somebody from your local college intern would help out with some of these, but this really adds a lot of cost in that sense, and it also, I think, creates a lot of really valuable jobs of people who are doing all sorts of different things to ensure the building is optimal sustainability. From a single family standpoint, on the left there, that small house with the flowers in the front, that's the Endeavor Center. It's Canada's greenest home. They should be certifying here anytime. Pretty interesting project up there in Canada. And then the EcoSense residence is in Canada as well. And on the other side of the country, and this is a PEDAL certified, and believe it's still pending, trying to reach net zero energy.
Getting into the multifamily housing side of things, here is a project in Washington. It is a net zero certified project from the International Living Future Institute. Multifamily housing, really great case study to look at for apartments, condos, and trying to get to zero energy for multifamily. We're real excited to be working with the Burbeck at Beacon Springs project. This is a first, hopefully the first Living Building Challenge home around Ann Arbor, Michigan, within Michigan, that's underway. A really exciting project. The Nest is going to be a gut rehab Living Building Challenge. Gut Rehab in the Baxter community of Grand Rapids, Michigan, helping people in a food desert learn how to eat better and connect with their own food, and growing their own food locally. And then a summary of the programs. The Living Building Challenge is the most difficult yet rewarding green building program. So they call it a challenge for a reason. Currently, it's mostly being used for small research facilities and schools. That's where most of the certifications and projects are taking place. And again, most are happening in the commercial world, though we showed you some example of residential. And one of the neat things about this program is it's got a lot of continual progress. So maybe the first year you get PEDAL verification within your materials choices, and then maybe the next year you're able to hit net zero energy once you're able to add all the PV, and then maybe the next year you're able to capture and clean your own rainwater, which a lot of code can get in the way of that, and so that might be something that you look to in the horizon and take it as a sort of staggered approach. One last thing that we always like to ask here is, are green homes, are they still green if they're not accessible? And we don't always know the exact answer to that, but we see the zero-step program from the Disability Advocates of Kent County trying to answer that question, and has come up with basically a package for builders, architects, remodelers to make homes more accessible, aging in place, universal design, all of that. So we're really excited to see that program expand and be interconnected into green building programs.
Help you understand that each of these programs move from a typical code home to better building, to high performance green homes, to pursuing sustainability, and to finally looking at building ways that are both restorative and regenerative to our planets, and how these programs each fit into each of these pieces. So before we wrap up, we want to do some side-by-side comparisons here, and these are just some of the categories we're going to be looking at real quick. This is a great tool put together by the Rocky Mountain Institute, where we're looking at working with the USGBC to build that out a little bit more. But you can quick see here, and this will be in your handout, where the average existing home falls, what energy code you're looking at, what green building program you're using, where you fall on the HERS index. Remember, the HERS index is the nationally recognized miles per gallon label for mostly new homes, being used on a third of new homes. So you can really see where each of these programs are going to average on this HERS index as trending downward towards zero energy is the best direction to head. This will be in your handout too. We're not going to cover this too much here, but it is a quick comparison in the state of Illinois. This will be more state neutral for you all, of each of the prescriptive pathways for energy requirements in each of these different programs and what is necessary as far as R value or construction type to achieve it. Water conservation requirements, you can see Living Building wins that program out, second only with WaterSense certification, focusing on WaterSense. Zero Energy Home, FIAS all have to go through WaterSense. You know, green communities lead GreenStar, certainly tons of points if you can achieve this high level of water, but it is not required, and then a little less in the Home Innovations Lab as far as water requirements. On the indoor environmental qualities, we've got Living Building Challenge coming in with that air quality testing assurance, but then otherwise really good prescriptive approaches from the EPA's Indoor Air Plus program, which again is required in the Zero Energy Ready Home, also in FIAS, all the way down to the bottom where the Energy Star program doesn't really have indoor air quality protocols, though they do have durability and moisture strategy protocols which can mitigate moisture, mildew, and rot. So there is you know, at least something there from that program. Material resource efficiency, durability, utilization of materials. Again, this is where these programs, FIAS, the Zero Energy Ready Home, Energy Star, sort of fall short. They don't really address these kind of items, and this is where the green building programs, certification programs, really shine, as well as the Living Building, obviously with the red list. This is one of the hardest things to do in Living Building Challenge, is meeting the materials requirement. Site and community impact, again looking at landscaping, how you affect your neighborhood, how you affect your community. Not something that you look at in the Zero Energy Ready Home or FIAS or Energy Star programs. Something a little bit differently addressed by the green building programs. And then of course you've got Home Innovations and LEED both have actually green community type programs, neighborhood development, which would be you know, probably right around here. Midwest popularity and traction, just get a good quick look on the programs and how popular they are. HERS index obviously being used on anywhere between a third and half the new homes. Energy Star is about 25%. LEED for Homes is about 10% of the market, but National Green Building Standard here, Home Innovation Lab, is certainly catching up, with the rest of these programs sort of vying in the smaller numbers, with Living Building being the least utilized program. As far as QA oversight goes, again, you can take a quick look here, how much oversight that is. So that's anywhere from having a third-party rater on site to whether that third-party rater has any kind of quality assurance management, to uploading submittals online, documentation, submitting that to the internet, what is required, how much of it actually gets audited both in the field as well as a desktop audit. All of these programs have a little bit of that in each of them. Certification and rater soft costs, again, these are just purely the costs to pay for certification, whether that's registration fees, whether that's certification costs, whether that's training costs for particular to be able to, you know, utilize the program, and then also looking at usually what inspectors are charging to come out and do on-site testing, energy assessment, and visual verification. Increased construction costs also are here. So looking at Living Building Challenge with a 20 to 30% instruction cost add-on, lead maybe around 0 to 10%, even less, and then even less as we go down. Though, interestingly, depending on what level of certification you are trying to achieve, that can really change the different types of costs here, all the way down to the HERS index, which is just going to cost your basic number for a rater coming in. But if you get a basic HERS score, that could be no extra cost for the type of insulation and air sealing you're doing. If you're looking for some detailed credit comparisons for each of these programs, the Home Innovations Lab has done some comparison from National Green Building Standards current version to Lead for Homes version 4. Enterprise Green Communities has some great comparisons on how they compare to National Green Building Standard, Lead for Homes, and then how they compare to Lead for Homes Midrise and the Earthcraft program out of the South. And then United States Green Building Council is going to be launching a comprehensive comparison of the newest National Green Building Standard, Home Innovation Lab, versus their V4. I've actually assembled some of these comparisons for you in the handout resource packet, so you can read through that and access it, or certainly go to their websites to get more up-to-date information there. If you're looking for unbiased information done by third parties, we can certainly some great resources. The one I want to point out here is the Green Builder Coalition. If you go to greenbuildercoalition.org/GBA, and if you become one of their members, you can get this really cool just line by line, credit by credit, that you can compare National Green Building Standard to Lead for Homes, or you can compare each of these together to the current Energy Star version 3 program. So go ahead and check that out if you're interested in a really in-depth credit by credit review. So again, overall, trying to determine out of each of these programs, based on those areas that we covered, what's important to you. Is it cost? Is it third-party oversight? Is it the type of guidance that the program provides? Is it anything to do with its political affiliations? Where is it that each of these programs, fit your needs? Are there a few that fit your needs? Some of these work well together for dual certification. But what is it that's important to you? And one person and company that I really wanted to call attention to for their dedication to this really progressive attitude of really just moving forward and building better, building healthier, building greener in a really fast, rapid rate that I've got to experience and see their growth since I've been here at the Alliance is Brandon Weiss, who's recently just rebranded and changed the name of his construction company, actually to fit with exactly the progress he has taken here, Evolutionary Home Builders. We have really seen him just move along from just somebody who builds code to building above code, to committing to lead rehabs, National Green Building Standard rehab of a home, to looking at the utilizing the DOE's Zero Energy Ready Home, and then going straight to Passive House in his next project, and now is actually working on a multi-certified project for his own household, which will include the Living Building Challenge, as well as working on a Living Building Challenge project in the Chicagoland area for a client at the same time. So it's just been phenomenal to see somebody really live out this idea of this continual progress and just going from one program to the other. And I think this also helped him win the Green Builder of the Year at the International Builder Show in 2013. So it's really awesome to see and witness somebody kind of just make that continual transition. So here we are at the end, and I want to just quick go over a couple things that we want to make sure you all have access to. Complete your quiz after this with a passing rate of 80%. Make sure you've also reviewed session 1 before you take the quiz. Pay any kind of relevant member or non-member course fees if you're not someone who's on the USGBC subscriber channel. then receive your certificate of completion and your congratulations for passing the course and your continuing education right along with that. And then ideally you'll go out and you'll be building green, certifying green, and really.
Well, I want to thank you again for all of your time and patience in listening into this program. Again, my name is Brett Little, and I am the Executive Director here at the GreenHome Institute. For more information on how to utilize, access, take advantage of any of the programs presented to you today, check us out at greenhomeinstitute.org, and you can email me at brett.little@greenhomeinstitute.org. Thank you.